Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we are continuing to talk about properties of exponents. In our last series of videos, we've looked at examples of each of these independently. And in our last video, we were kind of looking at mixing some of these up. In this video, we are going to do one big, complicated, ugly example to kind of see what happens and how we approach this. So here I have an expression squared multiplied by another expression raised to an exponent multiplied by another expression raised to another exponent. So I have kind of three pieces going on, and I'm going to need to work through I'm going to need to step through this carefully. I see that I have numbers, I have x's, and I have y's. So I've got multiple layers to deal with, and then I've also got all of these different variables to go with. So the first thing I want to do is I want to deal with these exponents. So that's going to be the first thing I do, is distributing those in. So I am going to get, distributing this in. I'm going to take kind of a short cut here because I've got so many steps. I'm actually going to do the multiplication right away. So I have 3 squared. When I distribute this in, I'm going to get x to the 2 times 2, which is x to the 4. And I'm going to get y to the negative 2 times 2, which is y to the negative 4. Then I'm going to get 2 squared, and I'm going to get x squared, x to the 1 times 2. All right, so that's my first piece. Now I'm going to work with my second, times x to the 4 times negative 3, which will be negative 12. So remember, I'm distributing it in. This will be x to the 4 raised to the negative 3. So that will be 4 times negative 3 as the exponent, or negative 12. Then I will have 4 to the negative 3. And then I will have y to the 1 times negative 3, or y to the negative 3. Looking at this last one, this is very ugly. But let's remember that anything raised to the 0 is 1. So that entire expression just becomes 1, and I don't need to pay attention to it. That whole thing equals 1. All right, so now I have these two things going on. I have a couple options for what I can do. I can move negative exponents first, or I can gather like terms first. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather like terms first. So what I mean by that, I have constants, I have x's, and I have y's. Because all I have here is multiplication, I can actually just make this line go across, and I have everything in the numerator and everything in the denominator. So I'm going to be combining, I'm going to like move things around. I'm going to use the commutative property of multiplication, and I'm just going to kind of move things around as is helpful. So that 3 squared, I'm going to put all of the constants together. So I have a 3 squared in the numerator, a 2 squared in the denominator, and a 4 to the negative 3 in the denominator. And that is all of my constants. Then I'm going to group together all of my x's. So I have an x to the 4th, I have an x squared, and I have an x to the negative 12 in the numerator. Okay, so I've got that term, and that term. And I've made sure that if it was in the numerator, it still is. And then I'm going to gather my y's. So I have a y to the negative 4 in the numerator and a y to the negative 3 in the denominator. All right. Now that I have like things together, now I'm going to deal with my negative exponents. So, and I'm actually so this is going to be 3 squared times 4 cubed divided by 2 squared. That x to the 4th is fine, and the x squared is fine, but this x to the negative 12 needs to become x to the positive 12 in the denominator. Then the y to the negative 4 and the y to the negative 3 need to flip. So I'm going to get y cubed over y to the 4th. Now I need to be simplifying this stuff. And there's a number of ways that I can do this. I am going to use a couple different ways. So here this is 9 times 64 divided by 4 times x to the 4th over x to the 14. So I'm doing this kind of in steps. So I'm combining the denominator here. And here I've got y cubed over y to the 4th. If I use my subtraction property to the numerator, I get y to the negative 1. If I use it to the denominator, I get 1 over y to the 4 minus 3. So that's going to be just y in the denominator. All right, 64 divided by 4 is 16. And 9 times 16, I'm going to have at least one more step. So I have 9 times 16 over here. Then for this, I'm going to get times 1 over x to the 10, because this will be 14 minus 4, times 1 over y. So putting this all together, that becomes 144 over x to the 10 y. So just to kind of recap, what I did was I dealt with these powers that were outside. I distributed them in. Then I got my constants together. I got my x's together. I got my y's together. If I had other variables, I would then also group those as well. Then I started simplifying. I started dealing with negative exponents, combining like exponents until I simplified it down to my final